Okay. So as I said once before, my name is Matt. I am with NAMI Greater Cleveland. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, Applying, Appealing, and Advocating for Yourself, the Bottom Line on Benefits. Today, we will be joined by representatives from Leaner Legal and the Ohio Department of Insurance. I will allow our three presenters to introduce themselves shortly, but first I would like to talk a little bit about NAMI Greater Cleveland. Some of you may be familiar with our work. Others, this may be your first time interacting with us in one of these presentations. We are a local affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, is the largest grassroots mental health organization of its kind. It is represented by affiliates in all 50 states, and NAMI Greater Cleveland serves Cuyahoga County. And our mission is dedicated to improving the quality of life for individuals with mental illness and their family members through providing support, education, information, and referral and advocacy. So to that end, some of the things that NAMI Greater Cleveland offers includes presentations like this. We offer support groups. We have educational courses for individuals with mental illness and their families. We have a helpline that is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about what kind of mental health resources are available locally in Cuyahoga County can call in to that helpline for support. And we also support advocacy in the sense of raising greater awareness about mental health, reducing the stigma around mental illness, and just contributing overall to a movement to allow all of us to recognize that we are not alone in our struggles with mental illness. So that is NAMI Greater Cleveland in a nutshell. I think at this juncture, I will allow Jordan and Michael to just very briefly introduce themselves, and then allow Molly to introduce herself. And then we will move into the first portion of our presentation this evening. So go ahead, Jordan and Michael.
I always like to let Jordan go first.
I'll go second. You can go first.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I just want to thank you for attending, and thank you to NAMI Cleveland and Matt in particular for organizing this. My name is Michael Leiner. I am an attorney here in the Cleveland area with a specialized focus on Social Security disability. It is the entire focus of our law office. And so I look forward to sharing some of my experience with you today, not only on just navigating the disability process, but also on helping you understand, hopefully giving you some tips on what to expect if you're applying for disability benefits. I'll let Jordan take over.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan Paratori, and I'm the client concierge at Leiner Legal. I'm a clinical counselor by training, but this role is pretty neat that I work right now. I help our clients find community resources while they wait for us to work through their case. So I get a lot of questions regarding mental health referrals and food pantry referrals, because as you may know, the process can be pretty long and grueling, the disability process. So I'm here to help our clients just make their life a little bit easier by finding resources for them. And I don't work necessarily with the case. It's just trying to find resources for them. So it's a pretty neat and unique role that I've almost been in for a year now. So always learning and always advocating for our clients.
Thank you both. So we'll start with Jordan and Michael, but first I'll let Molly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Mottram. I am with the Ohio Department of Insurance here in Columbus. I've been with the department for 4 years now, primarily working on mental health insurance benefits issues, outreach and education. This is a new role for the department. We actually were fortunate enough to receive some additional funding through one of the previous state budgets to focus primarily on outreach and education in this space to make sure people are aware of how to access and utilize their mental health insurance benefits, and then what to do if they're having issues accessing that, they've been denied claims or benefit, and walk them through those processes, letting them know what their rights are, provided them by the state and federal laws. And I'm really excited to dive into this topic with all of you today.
Thank you, Molly. So we're going to start with our conversation about Social Security disability. First, I just want to let you all know that this presentation is really meant to be a resource for all of you. So we strongly encourage you to share your specific questions. For all of you, there must have been a motivation to attend tonight, and we want to be as useful and helpful for all of you as we can be. So I encourage you to take advantage of this hour and 30 minutes to its fullest extent, its fullest potential. We are a smaller group tonight. It looks like there's 10 of us plus the 4 of us presenters. So, the floor is yours in some way. We encourage you to use the chat box. If you feel comfortable sharing, yourself, that's fine as well. Just keep that in mind. We want this to be educational, but also a viable resource for you tonight. So with that being said, I've got the PowerPoint on my screen, and I will hand it over to Jordan and Michael.
Thank you so much. And I have the chat box open so that I can see any messages that come through, and I'll do the best that I can to monitor it while I'm talking. If you have a question that's relevant to something that I'm talking about, feel free to chime in. I'll do the best that I can to work it into what I'm talking about rather than just waiting till the end to get to it. I do want to say if, for some reason I'm not able to address a question before the end of the hour and a half that we have, I don't want you to think that means you're not going to get an answer to your question. Jordan and I are absolutely going to be available to answer all of your questions, and we will get back to you with those answers. So also, just the last thing I want to say before we get started, Matt kind of talked about this. I'm speaking in generalities here today. It is almost impossible to create a presentation that meets the individual needs of everybody here. And so, I'm going to speak at kind of a bird's eye view and give the tips that I think are most helpful to the greatest number of people. And again, that's just a way to encourage you to feel free to ask questions and help us make this presentation most beneficial to you. So can we flip to the next? Or can I do this, or do I need you to? I think I need you. There we go, Matt. Thanks. So I'm going to kind of quickly run through this slide because this is probably the most boring slide that you'll see all night on any of these PowerPoint presentations. But I still like to give people a flavor for it because this is the baseline for everything that I'm going to talk about. And this slide essentially explains what is Social Security disability. And also what is SSI, because those terms, I don't want to use them interchangeably without explaining what those benefits are, whether we're talking about SSI, supplemental security income benefits, or SSD benefits, Social Security disability benefits. They are both government benefits for individuals who are unable to engage in any substantial gainful activity. Think of that as working at a level that is meaningful, which this year Social Security considers anybody who is working and earning more than $1,310 a month. Okay, that's a gross amount. By reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, and which can be expected to result in death, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. I want to break this down a little bit because this is a very rich slide. There's a lot here. There's really 3 components to this. The first part is the SGA part of this, okay? There's a lot of people there's misconceptions out there that say, oh, well, you can work while receiving or applying for disability as long as you keep it below 20 hours a week. That is not the case. It doesn't matter if you work 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month, or if you work 100 hours a week. What matters is the amount of money that you, the amount of money that you are bringing in a gross amount. If you are working and earning more than $1,310 per month gross, Social Security cannot find you disabled. So that's the first component to this. The next piece here is that by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, of course, when we're talking to a NAMI group, it can be any mental health or physical health diagnosis, but it doesn't matter if it's for a bipolar disorder or a schizophrenia disorder or a depression or anxiety disorder, but it is important that you have a diagnosis. I want to go past that though, because I also think it's important to let you know, and I'm going to talk about this a little more later on, that more important than a diagnosis, what's really important when you're applying for Social Security benefits is your functional limitations, okay? I get a lot of questions from people who will say to me, I have, an anxiety disorder, or I have, disc herniations in my back. Can I get disability for that? And my answer, if you ask a question like that, is always maybe. It depends. What matters is how it's limiting you, not just the diagnosis itself, okay? But at a baseline, it can be any medically determinable physical or mental impairment. And then the last part here, which more or less speaks for itself, is the durational requirement. The impairment must be expected to result in death or last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months, okay? So whether we're talking about SSD benefits, which is the government benefit for people who have worked and paid into Social Security, generally you must have paid into Social Security for 5 of the 10 years immediately prior to becoming disabled, or we're talking about supplemental security income, which has the same definition here, but instead of being focused on paying into Social Security, it's based on need and lack of financial resources. This is the definition that applies, okay? So I hope that was helpful. If there's questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box, but Matt, let's keep moving here. This is a complicated process, okay? And when people ask why there's lawyers like me who focus on disability claims, and I'm by no means the only lawyer that's doing this type of work, this slide should explain why, and why there's presentations talking about disability benefits. Denials are common. This is a system of denials and appeals, and you need to expect that going into it. And you also need to know not to give up just because you get a letter in the mail that says you are not disabled. Almost everybody is denied Social Security disability benefits when they apply at first. Okay, so what happens is you fill out this application for disability benefits. There's many ways that you can do an application. You can do it on the telephone. You can do it on the internet. Social Security still hasn't opened many of the field offices due to the pandemic, okay, or they're very limited with the services that they're offering. And about 80% of the initial applications that get filed are denied. So then if you get denied, we file an appeal, which is called a reconsideration. Social Security reviews the application again and decides if the reviewer can come to a different conclusion. About 90% of those people who filed the appeal get denied. But what happens there? After that initial application denial, about half of the people who applied don't appeal. They just fall off. They don't seek help from anybody. They don't appeal it themselves if they didn't decide to, perhaps hire an attorney. And to Social Security, that's a cost savings. And that perhaps explains why they're able to, deny people at such a high clip, or what their motivation for it might be, because, it's no different than any other insurance company that's out there, Progressive or Geico or any other insurance company you see on TV. It's about maximizing what's coming in and minimizing what's going out, or at least making sure there's a balance. But for so many years, there was so much more money going out than there was coming in. So the only way to bring that balance back was to deny people and hope that they would give up and go away, which is pretty effective if you deny 80% of the people or 90% of the people. So if you get denied at that reconsideration stage, then we file another appeal, which is called a request for a hearing. And a hearing is where we would go before an administrative law judge and present arguments to a judge for why we believe you meet the requirements for the benefits our clients. Generally speaking, a hearing with a judge is where people have their best chance of being approved if they're going to be approved. And even though that number looks pretty low, 45% approval rate, and it is low because it used to be a lot higher years ago, when somebody and I'm going to talk more about what makes a case strong, but when somebody is following the pointers that I'm going to lay out later on in the presentation, a hearing with an administrative law judge is their best chance of being approved. Okay. Now there are subsequent appeals. Even if an ALJ denies you, you can file to a body that's called the Appeals Council, which reviews, and then you can file into federal district court. You can do a circuit court appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's a litany of appeals that you can file in a disability case. But generally speaking, most people get approved when they apply for disability. What's the downside to this? The wait time. Now, I will tell you, Social Security has done a lot to speed up the process, particularly here in Northeast Ohio. I know we're speaking to, a group that's going to be largely in the Cleveland area here tonight. When I started my practice in Cleveland back in 2010, it was taking most people about 3 to 4 years to get from this initial application to a hearing with an ALJ. I had a lot of clients that in that time period went from working and being, gainfully employed and successful to being homeless. Social Security now has got it to the point where you can get from an initial application to a hearing in about a year. So that's good. The bad news is that by denying so many more people than they used to, when you have to file to the Appeals Council and to federal district court, and all these extra appeals, a lot of times these claims still can end up taking 3-4 years with all the extra appeals that we have to file. So it's a process, and you need to expect that going into it, but understand if you file the appeals, and more importantly, and I'm going to ask Matt to go to the next slide now, if you follow these tips that I'm laying out here, this is going to be my focus for the rest of the time that we have together, the rest of my 20 minutes. You can make a claim be successful, okay? So what does it take to ultimately win a Social Security disability case, okay? The most important factor, I believe, to winning a Social Security disability case is having a positive patient-provider relationship. Let me explain what that means. People don't get approved for disability because of what they tell me is wrong with them, the conditions that they call and report to my office. People don't get approved for disability because of how they fill out paperwork that Social Security sends them. And I'm going to talk more about form filling later on, okay? People get approved for disability because and only because of what their medical records say. That is the key to a successful disability case. I'm trying to get, some people might think I'm a little strange for this. I'm starting a TikTok page. I like TikTok, but I'm not doing the dance videos. That's not my jam on there. I'm trying to do ones where I give like solid disability tips. And the first one that I'm doing is one where I tell people, if it's not in your medical records, it didn't happen. Okay. And why I think that that's relevant to include in the conversation here right now is it is so important that you are treating with doctors, counselors, therapists, that you are comfortable sharing your innermost thoughts to. I mean, particularly when I'm speaking to a group like NAMI. If you are going through the disability process and you are treating for a mental health diagnosis, the things that you would be speaking to your providers about are probably uncomfortable. But it would be even more uncomfortable to be going through, treatment and going through this process if the person who you are, relying on for treatment is somebody who it's not comfortable for you to talk to. And so it is just so important to make sure that you are following up with doctors or therapists or counselors, that every time you see them, it's okay. It's a trusting environment. It's a place where you can go and you're okay saying to the therapist or counselor or doctor, boy, I've had a really bad 2 weeks since I saw you last. There were multiple days where I didn't get out of bed. I didn't shower for a week at a time, whatever the case may be. If you are not comfortable doing that, then Social Security assumes that everything is fine and okay. Now, another way to kind of, relate this is going back to what I said earlier. If it's not in your medical records, then, Social Security says it's not happening. Your doctors also can't help you. So I always like to, let people know that I believe that the way that you win a Social Security disability case or an SSI case is ultimately the same way that you get better, which is the reason that you would treat anyways, right? So your goal in showing up to the appointments that you have shouldn't just be to get your medications or just to check the appointment box on your calendar. The goal should be to not just attend a therapy session, but to actually feel therapy. And if you're not engaging with your therapist, if you're not engaging with your doctor and telling them the deep thoughts that you have, how can you expect to actually see improvement? Well, when you're sharing those thoughts with them so that they can actually help you and make decisions as your providers, whether they need to change a medication, maybe, DBT treatment isn't working, so they need to try a different form of therapy with you. That's when the treatment notes that they're generating are going to start to really be supportive of your disability case. Okay. I think that the first bullet there and my explanation for it really kind of flows nicely into the next bullet that's there. And I may be repeating myself a little bit when I say the key to a case is communicating your daily limitations to your providers. Okay. It is so important that when, what's frustrating for me as an attorney at times is when I am working with a client who I truly know to be disabled, and I can just sense it at times when I'm, speaking to them or working with them, and I can just tell how limited they are. Maybe it's the way that they speak to me, or, there's just something in the air that tells me they're really going through a challenging time. But I look in their medical notes and all of their mental status exams say normal, 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 because when they went to their appointments, they weren't comfortable sharing and opening up with their doctor. So don't let that happen to you. Okay. The next thing on there, conscientious form filling. You heard me say it before. People don't get approved for disability because of the way that they fill out any paperwork that comes from Social Security. I want to talk about this a little bit further. You may hear me sound a little pessimistic in my attitude towards the forms that come from Social Security. It comes with a lot of experience that I may sound like this. The forms that Social Security sends to be completed, it's going to be the same in pretty much every case. They're going to send you a form that's called an activities of daily living report. They're going to send you a form that's called a function report. These forms will ask you, how are you able to complete cooking tasks, cleaning tasks? How do you interact and relate with other people? Your responses to these questions is not going to prompt them to say, oh, okay, this person said that they, are not able to cook or prepare meals. So, okay, since they said that, we're going to award them disability benefits. What they're looking for is the person who just says, no problem with this, no problem with that. Okay, since you don't have any problems, they're going to use these forms to deny you. Keep that in the back of your mind. When you are filling out paperwork for Social Security, they will use your responses as the best evidence available to them to hold against you. So make sure you aren't helping generate evidence to be used against you. If Social Security asks on a form, how do you, do you do meal preparation? The answer for pretty much everybody would be, yes, I do some form of meal preparation. Everybody, I would imagine, at some point or another, walks over to the refrigerator, and even if the most meal preparation you ever do is pouring a bowl of cereal, you still have to take out the milk. Okay, but you shouldn't just say yes when Social Security asks if you do meal preparation. You should say that is the extent of your ability to perform that task. Because if all you say is, yes, I do meal preparation, Social Security thinks you're, Emeril Lagasse in the kitchen, or any of these celebrity chefs whipping up 8-course meals, as opposed to somebody who, is maybe only eating one meal a day. Maybe it's heating up a TV dinner, because you're not really able to do more extensive preparation. So think about the forms that you're filling out. Don't let them use your answers against you. The next tip, adhering to deadlines. It seems so simple, but I can't tell you how often, forgive me, we have clients who miss appeal deadlines and ultimately end up losing months and months, or sometimes years, of a disability case, because they just, you have 60 days after denial to file an appeal. Don't make yourself have to start a case all over just because you sat on it. When Social Security says you have 60 days to file an appeal, you have 60 days to file an appeal. So, follow their deadlines, appeal things on time, and keep your case moving forward. Don't start a new application, because it's going to be this same, cycle of, at the initial application, a denial, a denial, a denial. You need to keep the claim moving forward and file appeals. But if you file the appeals, the goal is to get yourself to a disability hearing. Okay, but you need to adhere to the deadlines. The next thing is to understand the disability definition under SSA, which I laid out for you under that first slide. And the reason that I put that on here is, a lot of times we have clients that'll come to us and say, well, I know I'm disabled because, for example, the RTA gives me a discounted rider fare, or, I'm disabled because I'm getting a certain percentage from workers' compensation or the Veterans Administration, or, I'm getting VA benefits. Social Security has their own definition of disability, and that's the only definition that matters when Social Security is reviewing your claim. So don't think that just because there's, you may qualify as disabled under another government body, even if it's a federal government body, you would automatically be disabled under Social Security. Focus on the pointers above. Make your case stronger by treating, adhering to the treatment recommendations of your doctors, because those are things that are really important. Patience and understanding, I already talked about how slow these cases are. It's so important that you just have a mindset going in that most people get denied and have to file appeals. These cases are slow, and you just need to keep your claim moving forward. And I know my time here is kind of running short, so I'm going to end with this last one here. Abstinence from drugs and alcohol and following prescribed treatment from specialists for disabling conditions. I can't underscore the importance of those things enough. Those really should be 2 separate bullet points. I apologize for that. The first one there, abstinence from drugs and alcohol, and here's why that's important. Even if, for example, a lot of times people with serious mental health issues, the fact that they are turning to drugs or alcohol is often a symptom of their impairment, rather than it being they are having hallucinations because they are abusing drugs or alcohol. Well, a lot of times the only reason that they're using drugs or alcohol is to calm the thoughts in their mind, right? That's a very common thing. However, the way that the Social Security Act is written, it unfortunately gives administrative law judges the power to play this game of, chicken and the egg, which came first. And oftentimes, even though they're really wrong about that, and they really can't play that chicken and the egg game, they do anyways. And it doesn't generally come out favorable to disability applicants. Just take that power away from them. And I understand it's not something that everybody can control. Most people can't, but as much as you can, put yourself through sobriety programs to separate any type of substance issue from a mental health diagnosis and treatment, do so, because it can only help your case doing that. And then prescribe treatment from specialists for disabling conditions, which is a little bit different than what I said earlier. I'll just end by saying it is so important. When we have clients that come to us and say, yes, I have a list of mental health conditions, but I'm only treating with a primary care physician and, I'm not getting any counseling. It really is very important that if you have a serious mental health condition, I would tell somebody that had a heart issue or a back problem, the exact same thing. You are treating with specialists for those conditions. You really should be receiving therapy or seeing a psychiatrist or, getting a higher level of care. And the reason is because Social Security will just assume that if you're only seeing a primary care physician, the treatment is often very conservative. Oftentimes people aren't following up enough. And from my standpoint, what I see a lot is that primary care doctors or general practitioners, their quality of documentation of mental health treatment notes, it's just not thorough enough to give people the documentation that it takes to be successful in winning a disability case. That's often the biggest barrier. So don't let that be an issue for you in your case. Treat with specialists, get counseling, see a psychiatrist or nurse practitioner if you can. NAMI provides referrals and can help you get linked with that. So does my office. But these are the things that I have found to be the most important factors in winning a disability case. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. Hey.
All right. Thank you, Michael. So I would like to open things up for questions that we might have about Michael's presentation. That was a lot of great, solid information. I think I should have been taking notes, but I wasn't. I will send out the PowerPoint slides from both these presentations to all of you that are in attendance. I did get a question in the chat about that. We will make these available to all of you. I'll probably send them out tomorrow. But before we move into our second piece, let's see if we have questions. And it looks like we do have a question here. How long should it take to hear back from a lawyer about representation for an appeal?
About whether they will take your case or whether there's my answer. And then, I personally think that the difference between good representation and bad representation comes down to communication. And so, we usually get back to people within a day. I don't know why it would take longer than that. I'm not sure if that's the answer you're looking for. I'll read this. If you exceed the $1,310 a month, you enter the 9-month trial work period, right? Yes. What constitutes the trial work period? And after the 9 months, what happens? Actually, so this is one that with the 2 minutes that I have might be tough to answer because there's more that goes into it. I might want to send an email to answer this question because there's There's something called an unsuccessful work attempt, and there's a bunch of other things that go into giving a proper answer. There's actually a really good guide that might be that Social Security publishes that might be the best way for me to answer this. See, we're pouring in with, do you want me to try and answer these questions now?
Yeah,
Or
I think, if you're comfortable, Molly, with us just taking at least a few more minutes. Yeah, she's nodding her head. So I think it's important that we answer these questions. So absolutely
Okay.
take that time. We've got till
All right.
7:30.
Okay. I think that to answer the question about the trial work period, what I'm going to do, if it's okay, Jonathan, is can you put, or even if you just want to send it to me, if you can send me a private message, there's a really good guide that Social Security puts out. It's very short that answers everything about this particular issue. And I think that great, I got that. And I'm going to forward this to you after, because this will really help. And I'm going to move on here. Should I file? Okay, the next question, should I file on my own first, or do you recommend I start an SSD app with you, the attorney? Great question. From the client side, it really comes down to preference. I don't like to, it seems salesy when I come out and say, yeah, you should hire an attorney right away. I also like to let people know that the forms that I talked about earlier, which Social Security uses your responses against you, get sent to you to be completed within 2 weeks of you filling out the application. So if you wait until after you are denied Social Security to retain an attorney, a lot of the harmful statements that people make when they apply for disability have already been made, and it's more difficult to salvage them. So I definitely, from my standpoint, I think it's very beneficial to get involved with an attorney from the initial application stage, even before you've applied. But it's really about preference. And I don't like to come across like I'm trying to sell myself or retaining an attorney. That's not the purpose of this at all. But I do understand for sure why a lot of people prefer to do so. This question is from Al Suzanne. Hey, does Social Security distinguish between schizophrenia and bipolar? I heard more cases are awarded to schizophrenia. Social Security does distinguish between the two. They fall under different listings in the Blue Book of Listed Impairments. They, of course, have different symptoms that go along with them. It may just be a percentage-wise thing. I wouldn't say that you have a better chance of being awarded disability if you have bipolar than a better chance of being awarded disability if you have schizophrenia. What you may have seen is that Social Security does publish a list of, the diagnoses that led to the number of claims being awarded. And there may have just been a year where there were more people with schizophrenia awarded than bipolar, but that doesn't mean you have a better chance of being awarded with one diagnosis or another. So that wouldn't be the right way to interpret that information, in my experience. Again, it's not about a diagnosis. It's about the functional limitations that accommodate the diagnosis. There are people who have both schizophrenia and schizophrenia and bipolar disorder that are receiving treatment and able to function and work with each. So the question really comes down to, with the treatment that somebody is receiving, how are they responding to it? And with that treatment, are they able to function and work? So it's not as much based on diagnosis as it is the response to the treatment that they're getting. How many times can you appeal to a denial? You can appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And if you keep getting remands from the federal courts, the answer is infinity, because you can literally keep appealing and appealing and appealing. And if it keeps getting remanded, which means they keep sending it back for new proceedings, there is no limit. And there isn't a distinguishing factor there between SSD and SSI. So there's no limit to the number of appeals. And yes, how about, that's a great answer. How about I just, while, hold on, I accidentally clicked off this box here. While Molly is presenting, I will just go ahead and drop that document into the chat so everybody can see it. I can quickly find it.
Great. Any more questions before we move on to a different? Can I get your contact info because I need help applying? Sure, I guess Michael and Jordan can go. Yeah, go ahead. So let's move on to Molly.
And I can actually screen share myself if you're okay with that.
Yes, please do. I appreciate
it. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that. All right. Like I said, I'm with the Ohio Department of Insurance. I know not a lot of people know we exist. I'll be honest, I didn't know the Department of Insurance existed before I actually started here. But I think hopefully you'll come to find at the end of this presentation that there's a lot that we can do to assist in the consumer services area, especially when it comes to helping navigate mental health insurance benefits. But just to start out, I just want to give just a brief overview of who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to move into some information about how to navigate benefits, and then most importantly, filing complaints and appeals. So as a department, you know, we really strive to provide consumer protection through education and fair but vigilant regulation while promoting a stable and competitive environment for insurers. And, you know, we do this in a number of ways. I would say, you know, one of the first things that we do is we regulate both the insurance companies and the plans that they sell to Ohioans, and then we enforce the laws related to insurance here in Ohio. All of these things are going to relate to mental health and substance use disorder benefits, and I'm going to walk you through how that relates. But just to start off, I just everything that I'm covering today, I'm kind of covering a specific type of insurance plans, but a lot of the general information that I'm going to cover will apply if you have Medicaid, a fully insured plan, self-insured plan. It'll kind of just depend on where and what regulatory agency you would reach out to, but I will certainly cover that information. There are a number of different health plans here in Ohio. You have Medicaid plans. Those are regulated by the Ohio Department of Medicaid. There are Medicare plans. Those are regulated by CMS. And then you have self-insured plans, and those are actually overseen by the Federal Department of Labor. And if you're not familiar with what a self-insured plan is, those are the types of plans. Like, think of the state of Ohio, Ohio State. There are large companies that can actually pay their employees' claims for them. Those are overseen by the federal government. And at the department, what we oversee in the health insurance market here in Ohio are the fully insured large and small group plans, and then the individual plans. So for example, ACA compliant plans that you would get on healthcare.gov, plans that you could purchase directly from the insurance company or like an insurance agent. So those group plans and those individual plans. We are responsible for the oversight and regulation of these plans, the insurance companies, agents, and agencies. And we really just make sure that they're following the law set at the state and federal level. And just for a brief overview of those plans that we regulate, we are reviewing the products that they sell to you all, to Ohioans. So we actually have staff that will help review these plans. So if a company wants to sell a certain product in the state of Ohio, it has to come through us first. And that team that we have on staff will review those products to make sure that they're compliant before they're ever available for purchase. We also have one of the most important things that we do is our consumer services team. We have a robust consumer services division with experienced staff that are able to help people understand their insurance benefits, help resolve issues and complaints with a company or even an agent. So let's talk about what we are here to talk about. mental health insurance benefits. So when it comes to mental health insurance benefits, like I mentioned, you can get your insurance through a number of different ways. I'm really going to kind of focus on the commercial side of insurance today. But the biggest question that you're going to have on your mind is, if you want to utilize your insurance benefits, somebody, whether you may be experiencing crisis, somebody you know is in crisis, you want to utilize your benefits. The first question you're going to ask is, do I have coverage for this? And I think the most important thing to understand is that the type of coverage that you're going to get is going to really depend entirely on the type of plan you have. So that's really why it's really important to begin to, before you begin to utilize your benefits, to understand what type of plan that you have first and where does that coverage come from. For the plans that we regulate, so the individual plans like an ACA plan at healthcare.gov, those plans are required to offer mental health and substance use disorder benefits. That's a requirement of the federal law. So if you have a healthcare.gov plan, your insurance benefits are likely going to cover mental health services. Those group plans that I mentioned, those small and large group plans, those employer plans, the plans that you get from your employer, many of these will offer mental health insurance benefits. Generally what we see that they are offering them, it kind of just depends on the type of plan, again, what requirements they are required to follow. But again, the most important thing that you can do, the first step in trying to figure out, you want to seek help, treatment, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, is to figure out what type of plan you have and where that coverage is from. So these are a few things that you can do to figure out what type of plan and coverage you have. You can check the certificate of coverage issued by the insurer or the provided by your employer. This is that packet of information that you would get when you sign up for a benefit year, or you say you have an online account with Anthem. That information will be available to you. It's usually you kind of toss it to the side. I would certainly take the time to read through that. That's going to explain what benefits are available to you and what coverages you have. You can contact your human resources office if you're at your employer. You can contact the health insurer directly. Whoever you're getting your plan through, you can call up Anthem or Medical Mutual or whoever you get it through directly. You can call your insurance agent if you get your insurance agent. And then of course, you contact us at the Department of Insurance and our consumer services team, who would be able to assist you with navigating those benefits. So how do you actually access those benefits? You know you have benefits available under your plan. You know you have coverage. What do you do next? So let's start with the steps that you can take. For example, everything again that I'm covering, especially in these couple of sections here, will apply across the board, whether you have a commercial plan or you're on Medicaid. These are simple things that you can do to kind of educate yourself about your insurance plan. For example, if you, I'll say this, if you're doing this for yourself or on behalf of someone, this all applies. So one of the first things you can do is identify those costs associated with benefits and services. I would say this is one of the most important things you can do so you're not surprised with any sort of costs. So figure out what your co-pays, your co-insurance, your deductibles are. That information is available to you in your plan. It'll, sometimes it's in a form of a chart or it's listed out for you. Do your research and figure out what costs are associated with your plan. If you are looking for a provider, it's really, really helpful for you to verify both with the provider and their insurance company they are in network, in your plan's network. It's helpful to have your insurance information handy when you talk to the provider's office. So you can give that to them when they ask for it. And then vice versa, to have the provider's information as well when you talk to the insurance company. It's helpful to confirm on both sides. So those are a few steps. I will just kind of highlight here. Hopefully this will work. Let's see here. This will work. I'll highlight our toolkit at the end of this, but just to, those are just a few questions. I don't know why I did that. So we actually put together a list of helpful questions specific to mental health and substance use disorders that you can ask your insurance company when you call them to kind of jumpstart that conversation. questions about pharmacy, emergency room, in and out of network benefits, I would certainly refer to this document on our online toolkit, which I'll reference at the end of this and show you how to access that. But these are some questions that I would print this form out in front of you and figure out, take a pen and answer on this sheet as you're asking these questions. Again, these are just some examples that you can start with as you are trying to figure out what benefits you have available to you and what coverages are available. So the second thing is you've gone through treatment, or you're currently still in treatment, or your loved one may be in treatment. The next thing would be to receive, what happens afterwards. So likely what's going to happen is you're going to receive an explanation of benefits, which is often commonly referred to as EOB. This is not a bill. Your EOB is not an insurance bill. Really, the EOB is help to make clear the cost of care that you have received, any money you've saved during your visit with in-network providers, out-of-network medical expenses, billing codes. This is really just kind of a synopsis for your visit and the care that you received and how your benefits were billed towards you. Then you will receive a bill for the provider, the insurance company. Make sure you keep all of those documents. It's really helpful to have that information and to review those documents to make sure that everything appears to be correct. You're not being charged for something that's not supposed to be charged to you based on what benefits are available to you. But as you know, that doesn't always happen. There are times when you are denied a benefit, a claim, you have to pay something out of pocket that you didn't think you were required to pay out of pocket. So it's really important that when this happens to you, you have rights and you have options. So let's walk through what those are. So there are two ways to address this situation. If you've been denied a claim, a benefit, payment, whatever that may be, you can file an appeal with the health plan, or you can file a complaint with the department, with us at the department. And I'm going to kind of walk through the difference. But what I really want to mention is, when is it appropriate to file a complaint versus when is it appropriate to file an appeal? And I would suggest to always start with an appeal. This is because there's going to be strict timelines when it comes to appeals. So we wouldn't want you to miss out on filing an appeal because you filed a complaint instead. So really, depending on your situation, also, like, we can't get involved until an appeal has been generated. That's not always the case, but oftentimes that is what happens. So if anything, do both, but do not forego an appeal or a complaint. So let's start with what a consumer complaint is with us at the department and what information that you're going to need. So filing a consumer complaint. When you do that, there's a number of ways in which you can do that at the department. It could be through phone, email, and we actually have an online complaint form on our website. When you have a complaint, you're going to want to include, most importantly, the name of the health plan. We need to be able to understand who the company is. That's our starting point. So it's very imperative to include the company name. We need that general information of your policy number, your group number. This information can be found on that insurance ID card that is issued to you. Even if you have an app through your insurance company, you can find it there. You'll want to include that information. And then you're going to want to include a description of what happened and who was involved. This is another important thing. If you are, and you can file a complaint on behalf of someone. If it's a family member or a friend, obviously with permission. If the complaint involves a dependent under a family coverage, under a plan, make sure to identify that person under the plan. And likewise, if you're filing on behalf of someone, make sure you include that contact information as well. And then, of course, include any corresponding letters that you have between you and the health plan, providers, like some of that information I mentioned earlier, those EOBs, any faxes or phone calls. You just make sure that you document everything when it comes to these situations. It'll help you in the long run, and you can share all of that information with us when you file a complaint. So what happens when you file a complaint? Like I mentioned, there's a number of ways that you can file one. through our phone, through our hotline, our consumer complaint form online, email. But when you file a complaint, what we will do is we'll actually send it out to the health plan and ask them for an explanation. So they'll get an actual copy of everything that you have sent to us, that we have received, and we'll say, hey, explain your work here. Tell us why this was denied. Can you what's going on here? The company by law has 21 days to respond, but they can't ask for extensions. And I think it's important to know, we are talking about mental health and substance use disorders, and oftentimes these cases can be pretty complex. So it may take longer than those 21 days for the company to do the necessary internal review that they have to before they respond to us. Once we receive a response from the company, our team here internally will review, one, to make sure, is there any additional information needed? Sometimes that could include going back to the plan. It could mean going back to the consumer and saying, hey, can you provide some more information here? Most times, it's going back to the plan. If we have found through our review that the plan has adequately addressed the concerns that we have raised, one of two things will happen. And I will note that our consumer services team will work closely with other departments, other divisions within our department. It's just depending on the complexity of the cases. But once we've determined we have all the necessary information, we've reviewed and analyzed all the information, one of two things will happen. If we determine that there was any violation of the law or contract that may exist, we will make the insurance company overturn their initial decision. If we have found that the company acted lawfully and there was no violations, obviously we will inform the consumer of that. We will send out a letter to the consumer informing them of our findings and letting them know how to what the findings were. And just to quickly highlight here, we have our online complaint form, and I'll just briefly walk through this just to highlight the important information that we highlighted here. Hopefully it works. Perfect, it does. So this is actually available on our website. You can go here and directly fill out a complaint form online, and somebody in our consumer services team will receive this. But like I mentioned, you're going to want to include a lot of that information earlier, your name, your contact information. In this first section here, in the second section, this is really important, the insurance information. Like I mentioned to you, you can file a complaint on behalf of yourself, but you can also file a complaint on behalf of your family member, your dependent, or a friend. When you do that, you're going to want to indicate who this complaint is for. Obviously here, you're filing on behalf of yourself. I am the insured. If you are not the insured, but you're filing it on behalf of someone, you're going to want to include their information here so we can identify through the plan. And also, if you're a provider or you are in a facility, maybe it's an inpatient facility, you have a family member there, they're having an issue with their insurance company, your provider or that provider can actually file a complaint as an authorized representative on their behalf as well. And they would fill this information out here and indicate that. Like I mentioned, crucial to include the insurance company name, the group number, you put all that information here, type of coverage. As you can see, we have quite a different lines of insurance that we regulate. It's not just health insurance. But likely you are going to want to do accident and health. If this is an agent issue, you can file a complaint against an agent. You can fill that information out here. This is where you would fill out a complaint description. Just include as much information in detail as you possibly can. If you're not able to fill out all the details, somebody on our team will follow up with you and get some additional details and ask you some questions. The complaint reason, there's a lot of things you can click here. Most likely what you're gonna, if you wanted to fill this out, you don't have to fill this section out, only if you know specifically. I would say the number one thing here you're gonna deal with is the claim handling section. There's actually something on here called mental health parity, which is what often this issue is referred to as parity. Out of network benefits, utilization review issues, internal appeal. So there's a number of things on here that you can go through, but don't feel like you have to fill that out if it's too much. It only helps us identify when complaints are coming through what the complaint is. And then that supporting documentation that I mentioned, those EOBs, any communication you had with the plan, you can actually upload those here. If you don't have the ability to upload those there, that's okay. You can always let somebody, when our consumer service rep follows up with you, you can let them know. You can always mail that in, fax that in as well. So this is available on our website. You can type in consumer form and it'll show right up. So that is how to file a complaint. Let's talk about how to appeal a claim decision. So if you disagree with a decision that was made by your health plan regarding a claim denial, a reduction in benefits, this is often referred to as adverse benefit determination. You have a right to appeal that decision. And just to kind of go over what an adverse benefit determination is, that's a decision by the health plan to deny the benefits because they have made the determination that the services are excluded, not covered, or limited under the plan, or covered person is not eligible to receive that benefit. So for example, this could include a benefit denial, a prior authorization denial, a reduction in the length of stay for an inpatient facility, a reduction in visits to a therapist, or you get a notice saying that you've met your visit limit for inpatient or outpatient care. Those are kind of things you want to keep an eye out for of a denied claim. Those are things that you can appeal. So when you receive a decision like this from your health plan, there's the appeals process. You have an internal appeals process and an external appeals process. Both processes must be initiated through your health plan. So when you file an appeal through the health plan, essentially, and again, you can do this on behalf of yourself, on behalf of a family member, a dependent, a friend, or whoever. You do have to be designated as an authorized representative. It's essentially just notifying, I'm doing this on behalf of someone. When you contact the health plan, typically you will find the appeals information on your EOB, your bill, from the insurance company. It'll have information on how to file an appeal. You'll contact the health plan, you will submit your reasoning for appeal. You're going to want to include supporting documentation, anything that's required by the company to include. Again, that information will be included with what you receive from the insurance company through that initial claim denial. Once you submit to the company, they're going to review their initial decision. They're either going to uphold it or they're going to reverse it. And typically this process takes 30 to 45 days. But I think what's really important to note here is that we are talking about mental health and substance use disorders. If you are experiencing an emergency or you're in crisis, if your life is in serious jeopardy or you are unable to regain function, if treatment is delayed, you can request an expedited review by phone to the health plan. So you would contact your health plan, you would call them and say, I am requesting an expedited review. And that you or the authorized representative can do that. All that happens there is it'll take 72 hours to review the appeal and give an answer if they're upholding or they're denying. So that's really important to note here. Don't forget that there is an expedited appeals process. Okay, so if you go back, going back to the internal appeal, the insurance company has reviewed your initial decision. For example, if it is upheld, you can then request an external appeal through the health plan. You just completed that internal appeal process. You can now initiate the external appeal process. And again, that is through your health plan. You call them up and say, I want to do an external appeal. There are two types of appeals. You have contractual and medical. When you file an external appeal, the insurance company is going to send that to us at the department. If it is a contractual issue, we actually have staff that will review that claim, that appeal. If it is a medical issue. We don't have physicians on staff, so we would send that out to an independent review organization, a third party to review that. So a similar process, it'll take 30 to 45 days for that review. And then we essentially will inform of our decision. Either we find that the company was following the law and they followed what was in the benefits, then the decision stays as is. If we find that there was a violation, we would make them overturn that decision. But in terms of something to note in general about complaints and appeals, they are really, really important to the work that we do at the department. It helps us understand what insurance companies may be doing in practice. If we receive 3 complaints from different people on the same company regarding a similar issue or a similar claim denial, we may look at that and say, this could possibly be a trend. Is the insurance company doing something they shouldn't be? And we can investigate that. Compliance is largely consumer driven. So I really would encourage you, if you feel like you've been wrongly denied a claim or you're having an issue with your insurance company, you can't get a hold of them, maybe they're giving you the runaround, you've received a reduced insurance payment, our consumer service team can certainly help you. Again, we have experienced people on staff who have experience in this particular area of insurance benefits. So just to wrap up here, I just want to cover some department resources we have. Everything that I have covered is available on our online toolkit. If you go to our website, what you'll always find is our toolkit is right on the front page. It's the first thing that you'll come across, which is great. Hopefully this works. It does not. Essentially go to insurance.ohio.gov. You'll scroll down and it is right here on the front page. Click on that. Take some time to go through all the resources we have available. Like I mentioned, we regulate only a certain type of plan, fully insured small group plans, small large group employer plans, and those individual plans. But we understand that people may call us with a self-insured plan that's regulated by DOL, a Medicaid plan. If you contact us and you aren't, we can't assist you from a regulatory perspective, we will make sure that we get you in contact with who can assist you. Our toolkit also includes all the information for those regulatory agencies on the side. We have information for consumers, handouts and tip sheets on how to navigate your benefits, how to file complaints, appeals, information for providers, and we also have information for advocates. If you work for NAMI or you're a volunteer for NAMI and you're trying to help people access their benefits, really helpful information on here. And everything is downloadable and printable. We encourage you to use these resources, but I would certainly take some time after this to go through all the information we have on here. We have a lot of information, including our recent statewide PSAs. And with that, here's our information to our consumer hotline, my personal information. I will try in my best to answer questions. Sometimes questions maybe I may not be able to answer on the spot, but I'll certainly work to try and find an answer for you. But with that, is there any questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Molly. We do have a question. What are the percentages of successful consumer outcomes of appeals of initially denied claims?
So that's a great question. And if you give me a moment here, I can actually pull up some of our numbers. Okay. So I'm looking at our numbers here. We have been starting to do, and you can actually find these in our annual report on the toolkit, that's on kind of on the side there. In total, from 2017 to 2020, so we haven't pulled our numbers for this year, for external reviews, so that's either appealing claim denials, we've received a total of 44. Now, those are the ones that we can review. Those are those contractual ones. We can't review those medical ones. 29 were upheld and 11 were reversed in the favor of the consumer. For consumer complaints, we received, there was about, looking at these, there's about 15 overturned over the course of we've received 53 complaints, about 15 have been overturned. These are small numbers. A lot of the reason is that people don't realize we exist. But if you look at those review numbers, those external review numbers, and we've received 44 contractual, and 11 of those have been reversed. So there are success rates. We just need more people to contact us if there's an issue, because we know people are experiencing them. They just don't know to contact us, or that they have rights to file an appeal. So I would imagine if we see more numbers come in, more people file complaints, we would see those numbers go up.
Thank you, Molly. Been a lot of really good information in the last hour and 15 minutes. I wanted to let everyone know that I put in the chat the link for the evaluation for this presentation. Please take a moment to complete that. It'll take like 2 minutes. It's really helpful for us because this kind of data goes back to our funders, and the funding that we get allows us to continue to offer presentations like this free of charge to the community. So please fill that out. Molly's putting a link in the chat as well for the toolkit. You know, we do have time for more questions. If there are more questions for Michael and Jordan, we still have a few minutes for that, or questions for Molly. Please, you know, like I said, this is your time, and we want this to be a resource for you, and we want to make sure that we get to all the questions you may have about these topics. And I'll put the link in the chat just one more time for the evaluation. Please complete that, and then you could do it right now. Getting some nice comments in the chat. This has been very helpful. Thank you all so much. Thank you for those kind words, Tim. We appreciate it. Other thoughts, other questions? Yes, Maria, go ahead. You can.
Okay. Okay, so I have a couple questions for Molly. On the form, the complaint form, you said you can file on behalf of the insured party.
Yes.
If you do file on behalf of an insured party, is the response going to come back to you? Or is it going to go through has to go to the insured party because of all these privacy rules?
So I can double check with our consumer services team, but the contact information that you put into that form is where we're going to send that information. The reason we need the insured's information or name, if you're filing on behalf of somebody, is so that we can identify the person of the plan. Because sometimes you may have multiple people on one plan. If it's dependent, we may not always be able to determine who the actual complaint is for. So that's why we would need that name. I don't believe, I don't want to say that. I can always double check and follow up with that, but I'm pretty sure the contact information you put on there is where that information will go.
Okay, and another question, at the bottom of that form, it said all this information becomes a public record and is available as a public record according to the state public records code. So, you know, are you telling me that anyone can look that information up?
Well, so you have stumped me because I did not know that. I will, let me follow up with, obviously there's public records laws in Ohio. I'm not sure how that applies to our consumer complaint system. So I will follow up with our assistant director. If you actually want to drop your contact information, even your email, I can follow up with you tomorrow to get a accurate answer for you.
Okay, so I'll send it to you only then.
Perfect. Yeah.
Other questions?
I have one. I think with the trial work period, there's 9 months. Maybe this is explained in the detail that you provided, Michael, but I was just asking, I think after the period of the 9-month trial period, potentially your Medicare benefits could start to, I guess you have, I think, like about 7 years, I think, to maintain your Medicare benefits or something like that. but you can appeal that and pay into Medicare benefits. Do you know anything about that?
Sorry, I was on mute. It's not, I don't think it's 7 years. I think it's up to 3 years, but maybe it's 7 with appeals. But what was the follow-up to that? What was the second part? I got caught in the 7.
I was just trying to I don't know. I had heard through like a ticket to work like brochure or whatever that that you could maintain your healthcare benefits for a period of time, even though your disability benefits had ceased. But I was just wondering if that was like, I think that's true. And then also, regardless of the amount of time, like I had heard that there's an opportunity to buy into like your Medicare benefits even after that period of time is over. Do you know anything about that?
That I'm not familiar with. I mean, once the period's over and they've deemed you not disabled, continuing, I don't believe that there's an opportunity, and the appeals have ended. I don't believe you continue to receive Medicare. If I'm understanding the question right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any final questions in our last 10 minutes? I hope that this has been helpful for those of you that have attended. It looks like we're getting a few comments saying that this was beneficial and informative. So we're happy that we did this workshop. It's an important topic, and it's obviously something that a lot of folks in our community are thinking about and needing assistance with. So I will, I'm going to put in the chat just one more time the link for the evaluation. Please do that. I'll also send an email to all of you that attended tomorrow with the slides from the presentation, from both presentations. And I guess I can also maybe put everyone who presented tonight, their email addresses and the websites for ODI and for Liner Legal in that as well. So look for that in your inbox sometime tomorrow. We're happy to do more presentations like this that help you all know what resources there are out here right in the Northeast Ohio community to meet your needs. So thanks so much for joining us, and thank you to our presenters for so generously donating their time and sharing their expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.